Business Spotlight, powered by Greg Fay Insurance. If you need good coverage at a great cost, call Greg Fay today. Greg, tell everybody who you got on the podcast this week.
What a treat, man. It's easy when introductions are of this level right here. Mr. Scott McGohan, and I just want to read a brief summary bio because I think his bio is so well written. So many times bios have an embarrassing number of words, but yours is right straight to the point. You can tell the things that matter to you by your bio. So I'm going to read it real quick. Scott is a husband, and it says 37 years here. I'm not sure how dated that is. Are we still at 37, Scott?
We're at 39. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, 39. All right. Married to his best friend, Lori, father to two beautiful children, both married to amazing people, and a grandparent of two. Well, now he's three because it said soon to be three back then. So I'm sure it's three and maybe more now.
Yeah, now it's
He had 35 years of tenure, recently retired co-chairman of McGohan Brabender, author of a book that I highly recommend. The name is perfectly named for the content of the book. Culture is an Inside Job. He also has a podcast. Founder of One Morning, and One Morning is an authentic mental health engagement catalyst built to drive deep adoption and compelling cultural change. They rally and cheer people and organizations forward, bringing mental health and substance use disorder resources to life. Every morning, millions of people wake up feeling lost, and he helps create the morning that they wake up feeling hope. I love how you intentionally wrote that. Scott, welcome to the program.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. Both you guys are rock stars. You guys just bring light to just so many different people. So I appreciate you both.
Scott, one of the places that I want to start with is centered around knowing when to pivot. I think a lot of leaders and entrepreneurs really struggle with knowing when to turn and start something new or just retire and play a lot of golf, which I know you're pretty good at golf. How did you know when it was time to pivot from something that you had done for so long and at such a high level into something brand new?
Well, I learned this at Aileron too, because a lot of business owners, they stick around way too long. And when you stick around too long, a lot of bad stuff happens. I mean, the industry goes faster. As you get older, you get slower. And pace becomes kind of an enemy. And your number one job as a leader is to find the next leader. And so at MB, I found the next leader, two of them, because I wasn't ready to leave. I've got way too much energy. And if I sat at home, I wouldn't be married 39 years. There's no way. And you can either let a leader lead or you can let them leave. And they're so good. It was like, hey, I think, we got to tap them on the shoulders and say, hey, you can take over now. And I think I'm going to step away and I'm going to let you lead. And now I got to go find something else to do. So, and Clay and the folks at Aileron, really, really instilled that in me really early.
I tell you what, the people, I don't think business owners recognize enough that the people that you associate with leave such a mark. And you just gave two great examples, Scott. Number one, you talked about the leaders that you developed at McGohan Brabender, but you talked about looking for outside influence and a voice that was strong enough and brave enough, because you can't be the leader that you were at MB at such a high level and kind of be strong. And it's hard to be strong enough to hear voices that may say something like, Scott, you've done all there is to do there. It's time to leave. how early on, and I know the answer to some of this because I had the privilege of reading your book, how early on did you recognize that it was such an important facet of what you did there and what you want to continue to do?
It was I think I was started there I was the 7th employee there, and I think when I took over as a CEO, we might have had 90 people, and when I left, there were 200 and I don't know, 280 people in one company and 100 in another. So that's quite a bit of growth. And when those 2 leaders came in, they came in and we were bigger. So the other thing that your listeners need to understand is, my skill set was at a level and I took it to a level and their skill set was higher. Like they came in with more competence than I had when I started. And so you have to have a dose of humility as a leader. Because the other thing I wanted to leave, like I wanted to leave with a Super Bowl trophy. I didn't want to have someone tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I think it's time for you to go." I wanted to leave on my own, and I didn't want to go to be like Tom Brady and go to Tampa Bay and have to go win another trophy somewhere else. And I left that place in the very best shape that I could. And deep down in my soul, like that felt really, really good. That felt good. But for your listeners, a couple things. So if you're thinking about transitioning your organization, some really good advice I'd give you is don't tell anybody that date or an effort around that date until you're really sold on that date or that time. Because sometimes, if someone says, I'm thinking about retiring in 2 years, you say that, and an army of people are thinking about taking over in 2 years. And if you're really not thinking about leaving in 2 years, then don't tell anybody that. Get your wife behind you, your spouse, your family, and really make sure that that's what you want to do. Because I bet it took us 4 years to make that decision.
Mm.
One of the things that I know about you, Scott, is that you've become an expert at calling up next level talent and hiring well. So many of the executives and entrepreneurs that I work with and that we have interviewed, they all struggle with the hiring process. So, talk to me a little bit about how you found those two people, or I know a ton of people in your organization and they're just rock stars. There's so many rock stars. How did you lean in and say, "Yep, I want them on my team, and I'll find the right space for them and make room for them to grow with us"?
Yeah, I mean, you meet them everywhere. I mean, and you got to be ready to see them everywhere. I used to take my business card and I'd meet someone and I'd take my name and I'd scratch it out and I'd write their name on my card and I'd say, "Here's your card. And if you want a real one, give me a ring because I want you inside our company because you belong here." And, it could be at a bank. It could be, at Starbucks. It could be a vendor you're doing business with, someone that just clicks, someone you just see and you just say, "Look, like you fit here and we got to figure this out." And it normally, the best ones really didn't come through recruiting, through like job postings. The best ones were surprises where we just met them and we said, "Hey, we got to put them on the bus. We don't know what they're going to do, but we just got to get them in here." I'll give you an example.
So,
Our
yeah.
HR,
Yeah.
Suzanne Meek, we were hiring someone in HR and they were building a posting. And I said, "Well, I'm going to do my own posting on LinkedIn because I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I like social media." And I said, "I'm going to write this post and I'm going to just say, hey, look, I'm looking for someone that, adores people, loves people, and understands the power of pixie dust inside of human resources." And the people in business said, "Well, that's stupid. No one's going to understand that." I go, "Well, the person that we need is going to understand what pixie dust means." Sure enough, she reaches out And she said, "I got the pixie dust you need." And I'm like, "Yep, that's the person. They get it."
Mm. So many guests that we've had on our podcast say common threads that are woven through each podcast, and you captured one of them. You see people that have high level leadership that people want to be involved with are constantly looking for people. So I love that. I absolutely love that. I'm going to talk about something that business owners come to. Probably this is one of the main things Tony meets with people about in his Follow the Lead executive coaching, and that is developing a culture. Now, you wrote a book about that, but the book was about so much more than developing a culture, but developing a culture is what happened. You did it at such a high level, and every single thing that you did was intentional to get that corporate culture. How does the business owner that is watching right now, how does he take and translate duplicating everything that he has inside of his head that he knows he wants his company to look like and walk like and smell like? How do they do that from the ground up, Scott? Because I was just so impressed with how well you illustrated in your book.
Yeah, I think for me, if I was, meeting with somebody, I would think that I would always put the customer first. What do I want my customer to feel like when I'm not around? The power of that customer, not the power of the owner, not the power of the business, the logo, the customer. And then from a culture standpoint, I think what's important is, culture's only as strong as the person leading it. So, you know, if you don't know yourself, you're going to have a hard time building an authentic culture. Like, if you can say we want to be a great company. Well, if you're not a great person, you're not going to build a great company. So you might say, we're going to build a good company because I'm a good person. I'm not a great person. So don't get so highfalutin, on all these other things that you think other organizations are doing. So that's why I wrote the book, because it's an inside job first. How do I feel about myself, this world, my employees? And that's the culture that is going to exist. Does that make sense? Because otherwise, it's not going to be real. It's going to be fake. And people are going to sniff that out and they're going to smell it. And then, what we did is we went out and asked our employees, what is our culture? If you had to define it in some words, what would it be? And they pulled some really cool words out. Words like grit, words like humility, words like bravery, words like belonging. So the workforce can bring those words together as well. So they can be a part of that entire process. And so just bring a bunch of people together, but you got to spend a lot of time on it. And then you got to make it real. So what do people see with their eyes when they come in your building? What do they feel with their heart? What do they hear? And then what do they ultimately, what do they smell? The smell is not literally what they smell, but what do they smell? Motive. What's your motive for caring about people? Yeah, I love I just love, I love culture. I mean, I just love it. That was a long answer to a short question.
Well, there's no way you could have said it better before Tony's going to ask you another question. I just want to repeat. I love that you said, what do I want my company to look like when I'm not there? If nobody grabs anything else, that is the money line right there. Go ahead, T.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting is that as you were doing the work of culture as an inside job, you started to do something that a lot of people don't do, which is actually talk about mental health. And and I know a lot of business owners who are so scared to talk about what's happening in between their employees' ears. Now you've built a kind of a new enterprise that's designed to really help talk to owners and businesses about that. Give us the story of one morning and why and how it's so important for business owners to lean in to what's happening with that heart that's beating in all of their employees and partners and friends' chests.
Yeah, I think what was important to me is like our culture, in my opinion, was really cool. Like we have a victory cart. We sold a new account. We'd put people on the cart. You ring a bell. We whip you around the building. We don't care if customers are in there. We just celebrate. We've got picture frames of every family member on every wall in every building. We've got a gigantic toy closet in every single building. I mean, I'm talking like Target-sized toys. So if, you bring your kid into work because it's a snow day, kids get to take a toy home. So really what we're teaching really kids is to love McGohan Brabender. We don't want kids to think that we're, taking mom and dad away. So when Beth and Eric took over, I didn't have a lot to do. I didn't have many people in my way. So I told them, hey, I'm going to bring a sense of belonging and brokenness inside the workforce. And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, look, we have a really strong culture and people smile all the time and people are always in a good mood. But I think sometimes people show up and they're not happy, but they're being happy because we're asking them to be happy. And they know they know our customers are expecting them to be happy. And I might get emotional right now, but sometimes people are really going through hard things. And I wanted them to know that if life wasn't being fair to them, they could raise their hands and say, I'm not okay. And I would give them an opportunity to say that, and I would give them help. And so we had an employee assistance program. Nobody used it, like most companies. And I wanted to bring life to it. And so I told my story. So hence the name One Morning, 18 years ago. And I've got a big house in Springboro, lake home, great job, cool cars in the garage, big title, everything society, great country club, everything society says this guy's got everything going on. And I woke up one morning and got on my knees and said, hey, God, take away this pain because today's the day. I don't want to live anymore. I can't hold it anymore.
Mm.
And I built a life based on performance. The more I did, plus the opinions of other people. And I lost myself. And I walked in the recovery rooms in Montgomery County and said, my name's Scott and my soul's cooked. And I got a lot of help. And I really got to learn who I was when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I got to go back and redeem and restore my life. And I hid from that for a long time. Shame, guilt, wasn't sure what people were going to think about me. And then after a while, I was like, I don't care anymore. You think differently about me? That says more about you than it does me. So I shared that story with the workforce and then asked other employees, hey, are you willing to share your story? And I just held my iPhone up and we told 2-minute stories in our building about miscarriage, about depression, about anxiety. And our utilization on our EAP went from 4%, which is average, to 38% in 16 weeks. Changed the landscape of our company. And it was just a beautiful thing that happened.
I would say that your transparency to beginning that one morning, your transparency has a lot, if not everything, to do with that. And your self-awareness is at a whole nother level. So you're talking now to business owners that are watching this right here. You had what happened to you uniquely happen to you. How can you respond to a business owner that desperately needs to be transparent with his or her team and desperately needs to be self-aware of who they are you can't just come straight out and ask that, but yet I have a funny feeling you would be able to comfortably, uh, pose that question. How would you do it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the big thing is, you know, your employees think you're perfect. And if you are, you should buy a helmet. And if you're really graceful, you should buy a helmet for everyone in your life. But because no one's
Mm,
perfect.
mm,
And the greatest gift you can give anyone on this planet is the gift of vulnerability and to
mm,
share people with where you made mistakes. And they say life's a wonderful teacher and she rarely gets an apple on her desk. So share some apples with people and it lets them know they're
mm,
not alone. They're looking at you like, you're Teflon and you're not. And when you share where you've been and the journey and the scars and the pain that you've had, it lets other people know that they're not alone. I mean, right now, if you're an
mm,
employer, 42% of Americans today are afraid to look at their checkbook. So if you're an owner of a business, that means 42% of your employees are afraid to go to their mailbox tonight and open their mailbox. So as an owner, you just have to be aware of that. So they're living in financial fear, which is the beginning of anxiety, which is the beginning of depression, which is the beginning of alcoholism, which is the beginning of drug abuse, which is the beginning of domestic violence, which is the beginning of everything.
mm,
So and all of us have had financial fear. Greg, have you had it?
mm.
I mean, Tony, have you had it?
Absolute
I've had it.
Absolutely.
Have you ever been afraid of your mailbox? I've been terrified of my mailbox before, right? And, and everyone's been there. And for some reason, we're just afraid to bring light to it. See, I don't think we suffer as much from a lack of resources as much as we do from a lack of acceptance. If we
mm,
knew what everybody was going through, well, not only could we help each other, but life would just get a lot easier. So if you, I'll,
mm,
I'll, I'll stop talking in a minute. If you love your people first, the work will always get done. Stop working on the work. Just go love your people. Love them.
mm,
Love them, love them, love them. And the work will happen. The work always gets done. Stop sitting behind your desk and looking at your computer screen or working on spreadsheets and just go out and love your people. The work will get done. Just love them like crazy.
One of the things that's interesting about this kind of work is that so many leaders feel inadequate on how to love people well. And they're scared of all the HR implications of what it means to love people, and nobody wants to get sued, and it's just real, right? Like you don't want to be like, I'm a faith-based guy. I know you are as well, and you're like, oh, I'm scared to talk about my faith and how it consoles me. How do you get over the fear that we all have issues, and as a leader, it's okay for you to ask about those issues?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I had an employee tell me one time, you're too vulnerable. It makes you look weak. And I said, that's the weakest thing I've ever heard. And they said, well,
Mm.
explain it to me. And I said, not today, maybe tomorrow. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, sometimes when you make a mess, you get to sit in it. So I'll talk to you tomorrow. All night I'm getting these texts like, are we okay? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. You're not, but we're fine. And I said that not to pick on the person because I was that person one day, afraid to be vulnerable. And you know what? I wasn't big and strong. I wasn't made out of Teflon. I was just a scared little boy that never really knew how to grow up. So as far as a business owner, I mean, you have resources. Never diagnose mental health, right? But you have access to an employee assistance program. If you have HR in your company, right? If you've gone through a similar experience, you can share experiences. Like my faith's really important to me. And I tell people, like, I'm on the recruitment committee, not the membership committee. And no faith's faith in something. It's faith in something. And I'm not going to be afraid of it anymore. And if a business owner just, in a lot of times, hopefully business owners are having employee meetings, they're talking to their workforce. I tell you, a big one we're dealing with right now is Alzheimer's and dementia within families. That's
Mm.
an issue that's not hard to talk about. You know, you could say, "Hey, who here has gone through Alzheimer's or dementia with their mom or dad or grandparents in this room?" People will raise their hand. There's help. Not only that, but can you help each other? So there's ways to bring that in a really healthy way. Mental health first aid. Adamus downtown has that training. McGohan Bravener has mental health first aid for free. People can come in and get that free training inside of an organization.
Boy, it sounds so easy. I'm gonna change hats here, and I'm gonna be the person listening. And it sounds so easy, but the only reason it sounds so easy is because you've chose to dive into it so many times. And once you dive into something that you fear, that thing that you feared before isn't necessarily the monster that it was. Is it repetition? Was it your employees' reaction to your willingness to bring to light not just things that went on in your life, but you challenged some other employees to, kind of come out with it with the encouraging assurance that somebody else is dealing with it right there. I guess my question would be, does it get easier with repetition? Because I can imagine a skeptic sitting back and saying, well, of course it's easy for Scott. I mean, he's 18 years out of it. I am facing this 600-pound gorilla that is me not being transparent, me not sharing everything with me, with my employees, and me really not loving my employees the way that I should. It sounds easy for you, but does repetition make it easier, Scott? I mean, it has to at some point in time. Encourage me.
Yeah, I didn't have any tools. So 18 years of recovery really helped me a bunch. If you're reading or listening to things, read and listen to everything about emotional intelligence. When I was 8 years
Mm,
old, I used to love to write poetry and I used to love to draw. But I told myself that little boys don't write poetry and little boys don't draw. Those are lies. So I got to go back and really rebuild who I was when I was 8. So if you really want to redeem and restore maybe parts of your life, you've got to go back and think about maybe who did I want to be and who have I turned into? Now, those are
mm,
really deep questions. Now, there is normally an 11-year gap between an evidence of depression or mental health and therapy. 11 years. Think of think of that hot mess, right? So we have no tools. So we don't know how to deal with fear. We don't have to deal with anxiety. We don't have to deal with trauma. We don't have to deal with any of that stuff, especially us as guys. You know how we deal with it? We just get pissed. We just get pissed off. And then our spouses retract, our kids retract, and we think we won. We didn't win anything. We just shut down all the noise. So, the first thing is just raising your hand and just, I don't have this figured out. You can call a therapist. You can reach out to your EAP, wave the white flag. But man, when you surrender and you start digging into who I wanted to be and who I want to be tomorrow, oh, what a cool life that is. It's a beautiful life. I wouldn't change a second of my life. I wouldn't even change that morning that I had.
mm,
One of the things that's interesting about the work that you've done is one morning is kind of redefining EAPs or employee assistant programs. And like you've essentially started another business in a niche that didn't exist until you created it. Talk to me about the process of going, I think there's an opportunity here. I'm going to create something that's never been done before.
Oh, I thought that was going to be really easy. Holy smokes. Because before we had an army of people behind us. We had HR, we had legal. If I needed something, you just pick up the phone and ask for it. Well, then that started happening here. And I'd be like, well, I don't know how to do that. And then you had to, I
mm,
mean, that was just holy smokes. Hired a great branding company out of Cincinnati called Hyperquake. And then, had, just the legal documents. And it was hard. I mean, really hard, a lot harder than I ever thought it was going to be. And then kicked it off June of last year. In the middle of that, my mom got real sick. She passed away in September. That was really hard, and it it was a lot more work than I ever thought it was going to be. But when we go out and we meet with those employers, and we sit with all those employees, and we ask them, has anyone gone through Alzheimer's and dementia? Has anyone gone through addiction in their family? And people raise their hands. The beauty in watching the sense of belonging to all that is so powerful. That's what gives me the fuel. But, Tony, I honestly thought I was such a good leader that this was going to be easy. And what a mistake that was. Holy smokes, was it a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I learned a ton.
I bet.
And before we land the plane, Scott, I want to steal a question from Ryan Hawk. We were lucky to have Ryan Hawk on our program, and having someone like him and someone like you, it's no wonder that you guys are successful, because you turn a Q&A podcast into a conversation that three dudes are just having. But Ryan Hawk has gotten accustomed to asking each one of his guests. He said, "Hey, let's roll the clock ahead 1 year, and we are going to be celebrating something. Doesn't matter how you celebrate it, but we're going to be celebrating something." What are we going to be celebrating, Scott?
I think in 1 year, what would be really great for me would be, I've never slowed down in my life. And I've really never taken time to understand what
We might be
doing
celebrating
very
just
little
as
looks
Scott makes it
like.
back on.
Oh, here we go. Did we break up a little bit? There we go. Am I back? Can you hear me now
Yeah,
Yeah.
say it one more time for us,
or
Scott.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Go back to how are we
Okay.
celebrating? Because we didn't hear any of it. We're celebrating that you're just now back on here. So
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I think for me, a year from now, I've never really understood what it's like to slow down in my life. I've gone 100 miles an hour for a long time. And hopefully a year from now, I've got we're hiring some people. I've got a new team, and I can really do what I'm best at. And instead of working 40, 50 hours a week, I can maybe work 20, and I can maybe work 10. And I can really lean in and spend a lot more time with Lori. And quite frankly, I can spend a lot more time with me. And just celebrate the fact that, hey, you know what? You've earned the right to slow down a little bit. That would be cool to celebrate. I doubt it happens,
Scott,
but
obviously you're a role model for all of us. And, I'm so thankful that our lives have been connected. One of the things that we love to ask, it's probably going to be the hardest question I ask you all day, is about who else we should have on the podcast. Who are one or two people that you're like, Tony, they absolutely, when it comes to leadership, these are the guys that I listen to. You should absolutely have them on.
one of my favorite guys is Jay Meyer. You know Jay out of Aileron?
Yeah, I love Jay.
Okay. Yeah, I love Jay. There's another Wes Gipe who was out at Aileron. He's a rock star.
Love Wes too. I forgot about Wes. That's a good one.
Wes is, if I'm a business owner and I want a consultant, one that's super honest, one that's going to come right in my face, doesn't care about hurting my feelings. And he's compassionate too, but he's really honest. Wes guy is the guy I'm hiring. He's that good. And he speaks with brevity and a lot of love too. And he's super smart. He's a lot smarter than I am by a long shot.
So good. Those are great names. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thanks for being a part of our community and what you do. As always, thank you to everyone who tuned in today, who's listening, who's sharing the reels on Facebook and LinkedIn. And thank you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. And until next week, remember to support your local business, because as the local business goes, so goes the community. Until next time, this is the Ohio Business Spotlight. We'll see you guys real soon. Also, happy birthday, America. Let's go 4th of July.
Oh,
Let's
Have a
go.
great weekend and be safe.